Two MacBook Airs. One big question. Is the classic M2 still unbeatable? Or does the brand new M3 really deliver? On the left, the MacBook Air M2, built for solid performance and great value. And on the right, the next-gen MacBook Air M3, promising even more power and efficiency. Let's skip the buzzwords and get to the real stuff. Each category earns points. And at the end, you'll see exactly who comes out on top. The result might not be what you expect. All right, here's the plan. I've mapped out all the categories we're going to dig into. Price, performance, graphics and GPU, display support, battery life, chip technology, connectivity, memory, and storage. It's a lot, I know, but trust me, we'll cover the stuff that matters. Okay, first up, let's talk price. So the M2 actually starts at $999. Seriously, for a modern MacBook, that's kind of wild. And sometimes you even spot discounts floating around, especially for students and casual users. Now, don't get me wrong, the base config is pretty limited with just 8 gigs RAM, and you're stuck with a 13-inch size. But for the budget-conscious, it's hard not to appreciate. Then there's the M3. It bumps the starting price to $1,099, which, yeah, $100 may not sound like much, but it stings if you're just looking for the basics. You do get options for both 13 and 15 inches, and standard 16 gigabytes RAM on some configs, but honestly, most upgrades are going to cost you more. So for value alone, I gotta hand this round to the Air M2. All right, moving on. Let's get into performance. The M2, well, it's totally solid for everyday stuff. Light video editing, school projects, tons of tabs. It'll take all that in stride. But throw a few layers of effects at it in Final Cut, or try jumping between some heavy apps and it starts to sweat. You hit the memory swap kind of fast and, let's just say, don't expect instant app switching under pressure. The M3 though? Oh, and here's something cool. It's legit about 17% faster on single-core tasks, 21% on multi-core, 15% better with GPU stuff, and it cuts video export times by about 25%. It's smoother for heavy tasks and just zippier all around, even if it's kind of overkill for basic web stuff. This one's a clear win for the M3. Now let's chat graphics and GPU. The M2 rocks either an 8-core or 10-core GPU, which is totally fine for light creative work. Think photo edits or basic 4K video. But yeah, there's always a but. It can't do ray tracing, and the GPU architecture is starting to feel a little, well, last gen. The M3, on the other hand, is packing dynamic caching and, wait for it, hardware-accelerated ray tracing and mesh shading. So if you're into 3D rendering or want to dabble in gaming on a Mac, you're actually going to see a difference. Sure, it's pricier up front, but for creative pros, the GPU upgrades really shine. Win goes to M3 again. Hey, quick fun fact before we keep going. Did you know the M3 chip has 5 billion more transistors than the M2? And it squeezes all that brainpower into a smaller, snappier 3nm design. That's kind of insane, right? Display support. The M2 is pretty straightforward. Great Retina display, 1080p FaceTime HD cam, like, it looks awesome. But it only supports one external monitor. So if you're a dock and multi-monitor kind of person, it's basically a nope. Enter the M3. Not only the same high-quality built-in display and camera, but here's something productivity nerds will love. It actually lets you hook up 2 external displays, as long as you keep the lid closed. Yeah, it's a clamshell-only limitation, but still, that's a big plus for anyone running a workstation setup. So, this round, the M3 takes the cake. Battery and efficiency time. So, on paper, both say they'll do up to 18 hours. The M2 usually hits about 12 to 13 hours with real-world usage, which is honestly fantastic for school or work days. Efficiency is good, but it runs on the older 5nm process. And under heavy load, yeah, it drains a bit faster. The M3, however, is built on this shiny new 3nm architecture, so you get even better power management. That means it sips batteries slower when you're idle, handles heavy work without dropping as fast, and sometimes even lasts a teeny bit longer in actual day-to-day use. The difference isn't huge if you do only light stuff, but for max efficiency, M3 wins here. Chip technology. Okay, this gets kind of geeky, but stick with me. The M2 is built using 5nm tech, has about 20 billion transistors, and the CPU tops out at 3.49 gigahertz. Solid, but not cutting edge. The architecture is based on the older A15 Bionic, and there's no AV1 video decode. Now, M3, it's rocking 3nm, a whopping 25 billion transistors, CPU clock speed of 4.05 gigahertz, next-gen A17 Pro backbone, 15% faster neural engine, and, oh snap, full AV1 decode support for smoother streaming. Most of these perks are for power users, sure, but it's seriously next level. M3 takes it again. Connectivity. The M2's pretty decent. Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.0, and 2 Thunderbolt/USB 4 ports. But nope on Wi-Fi 6E and newer Bluetooth. It's just not there. M3 steps it up with Wi-Fi 6E for faster speeds, Bluetooth 5.3 for better stability, same Thunderbolt/USB 4, and MagSafe 3 charging. Always nice, right? But remember, to really use Wi-Fi 6E, you gotta have the right router. Still, little things can make life easier, so M3 wins here too. Let's wrap up with memory and storage. M2 gives you 8 gigabytes base RAM. You can bump it to 16 or 24 if you want to pay more, and SSD options from 256 gigabytes to 2 terabytes. But honestly, 8 gigabytes with a slower base SSD is kind of meh if you multitask hard. M3, now you're talking. Standard 16 gigabytes RAM on newer models, plus you can jump to 24 gigabytes. The base SSD is actually faster, and you've got the same upgrade ranges. Yes, upgrades are pricier, but for smooth multitasking and snappy file handling, M3 is the move. So if you look at all the categories side by side, price, performance, graphics, display, battery, chip, connectivity, and memory, it's actually pretty clear. M3 kind of runs away with most of these, but the M2 still holds strong if value is your main concern. All right, my take? If you're a student or just want a really solid, reliable laptop under $1,000, go with the M2. It's got everything most people need, without the fancy frills. But if you're a creative pro, you multitask like crazy, or you want those dual monitor setups and next-level graphics, the M3 is totally worth it. So here's the bottom line. Go M2 for the best value. Grab the M3 for the latest power. Seriously, either way, you're getting an awesome MacBook Air in 2025. Let me know which one you're leaning towards in the comments, and drop any questions.